So before we start our little topic today, I want to play a little game. People always say, "Oh, I know my stuff. I know comic book characters. I'm the best." Now, we're gonna play a game that puts that to the test. I'm gonna show you a comic book character, and you're gonna tell me who it is. Super easy. Nothing beyond that. And yeah, let's just get into it. All right, first one. Who is this? He's pretty popular. He's been around for a while. Can't get it? Need a little help? Here's a hint. Now you know who it is. Okay, but he's old, he's niche. Let's try a little bit of a newer one. Who's this? Think about it. They were just in a movie about 2 weeks ago. Ready? Someone super popular. Who is this? Think about it. Here's a hint. So how'd you do? I'm gonna bet money that at least most of you got at least one wrong. Even the popular character like Iron Man is probably gonna have a couple people that missed him because of how he looks. He looks completely different from his MCU counterpart. But why is this the case? Why did they change the characters so much? And why don't people recognize their old versions, quote unquote, their original characters? And this is the concept of brand synergy. Brand synergy is mainly a Marvel problem. Marvel's been doing it ever since the first adaptation of their character, popular adaptation, which was Blade. Now, Blade looks very different from his comic book original adaptation. You can see the complete change in color tone. Blade was popular enough to get all of his comic book appearances after Nine's movie to resemble his movie appearance more, and now Blade is synonymous with the leather and black suit. But again, it's just a costume change. So what happens when you get an adaptation that's very, very popular, but also changes the characters? We had the X-Men movie in 2000 that was for sure popular with general audiences, but it was trying to copy Blade with the leather suits, boring attitude, and lackluster, boring characters that all tried to be the same person. They all tried to be Blade. And the people who made the movie were very clearly ashamed of making a comic book adaptation and ashamed of the source material. They make fun of it in the movie.
They go outside in these things. What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
But comic books did not get too affected by this because the popularity of the X-Men movie wasn't enough to overtake the comic books. They still continued to look the same as they did in 2000 for the most part. Now, DC has brand synergy to an extent, but not to the near level that Marvel does. DC, even when they were releasing DCEU movies, like Joss Whedon's Justice League and later Zack Snyder's Justice League, as well as BVS and Superman, Man of Steel, they were still releasing really good other adaptations of their comic books that were more in line with the comic books. Take, for instance, the Dark Knight Returns animated movie, Under the Red Hood, Young Justice. All these shows and movies are really good, and they never got rid of them, even though they had popular characters getting live action adaptations. Even when the Dark Knight trilogy with Nolan was coming out, they weren't changing Batman's more fantastical elements to match the Nolan aesthetic. Zack Snyder tried to copy the Nolan aesthetic, but the comic books themselves were not. But Marvel seems to have a strong distaste for adaptations that don't match the MCU tone, aesthetic, and brand. And it wasn't until Loki that we just started to get other adaptations that are more tonally different, diverse, and are a little more experimental. To find the origin of Disney's brand synergy disease, we need to look at the character that started.
Boss, I just pay for everything and design everything and make everyone look cooler.
Iron Man soared into theaters in 2008, right when Marvel was starting to make self-produced adaptations of their characters. However, since they sold a lot of their popular characters when Marvel was about to file for bankruptcy, they used C-tier characters to start, and we're going to make a connected universe based on these characters. But eventually, the connectivity of Marvel made it popular, and they were able to get their hands on popular characters again. The connectivity of Marvel was going to ruin some of the best adaptations Marvel has ever made, and the true start of this blight is one tiny detail that I believe is the sole reason for the murder of great shows, which are going to be the subject of this video. X-Men 1992 to 1997, Spectacular Spider-Man, and the true king of Marvel adaptations, which we will get to momentarily. Marvel's connectivity was the first of its kind, and Marvel, worrying that they were going to confuse their audiences with the connectivity, were afraid to use brand diverse, artistically diverse adaptations. The true culprit of the murder of these great shows is one tiny detail, and that, in my opinion, is Tony Stark's goatee. Iron Man is synonymous with his signature goatee, at least he is now. Back before the MCU, he was actually known for having a simple mustache that was more akin to his father Howard in the MCU. But since 2008, Iron Man had the goatee. Every single adaptation that he's been in has the goatee. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, but what's the big deal? It's a goatee. It's not that big of a deal. And it's not on the surface. Personally, I don't mind the goatee. I'm pro mustache personally, but it's really not that big of a deal. The big deal is what it represents. Let's get back to X-Men 1992, which was mentioned earlier. X-Men 1992 was really good. It ran up until 1997, right before the X-Men movie dropped. The show is really good and adapts a lot of the classic X-Men run, but after the MCU started, it was replaced with a new show called Wolverine and the X-Men. This is because of the popularity of Wolverine's adaptation in the Fox movies. Wolverine in the show is tall, heroic, and the leader of the X-Men, when that was never who Wolverine was. He's a gritty anti-hero who should not be leading the X-Men. That role is reserved for people like Professor X, Cyclops, even Emma Frost is a better leader than Wolverine is. Wolverine was never the leader. In fact, he works well when he's a reluctant member of the X-Men, which is something that Deadpool and Wolverine did really good.
Wanted me to be part of the team, but I wouldn't. I couldn't have him thinking I wanted to be there.
Interestingly, this is the movie with the comic book accurate Wolverine suit. You seeing the correlation there? I haven't seen enough of Wolverine and the X-Men to know if the show is overall bad, but the adaptation and how bad it is representative of what Disney is willing to do to good TV shows to enforce their brand synergy. I know that Wolverine wasn't part of Disney's umbrella at this point, but the trend is the same. If we have a bad adaptation that is popular by the non-comic book reading public, it replaces good adaptations. And if they get too popular, those bad adaptations will replace the comic books, just like we saw with Blade. Not saying that the Blade adaptation is bad, I'm saying that if we had a character like Superman, who in his movie murders people, snaps necks, and has parents that don't encourage him to use his powers to help people, but to hide them. If that movie was any more popular than it is, we probably would have a Superman in the comics that is completely different from the character that we know and love. So far, we have one show and its MCU-ified counterpart. X-Men 92 was replaced by Wolverine and the X-Men, and there it is very clear that people prefer the 92 version. I mean, look at these Rotten Tomatoes.
No.
Now we see that the MCUification of popular TV shows is going to cause problems. And now it's time to talk for the one that most people think of when they think of tragic, early, unreasonable cancellations.
Tell Mama, who's the big man?
Spiderman does whatever a spider can.
Okay, the first thing I'm going to get out of the way is my hot take here. Ultimate Spider-Man is not that bad. I know. Spectacular Spider-Man is really good. It was canceled way before its time. But here's the thing. I have a little secret to tell you. I am not that big of a Spider-Man guy. I never grew up on the Raimi movies. I watched the X-Men movies, and I liked the X-Men way more than I liked Spider-Man. I don't think Spider-Man is bad. I think it means a lot to a lot of people, and I think the Spider-Verse movies are the second best comic book movies ever made, into specifically. Spider-Man is really cool, but I never watched Spectacular as a kid. I didn't care about Ultimate replacing it. I did watch Ultimate, and the reason I watched Ultimate I will get to later. But while I actually like Ultimate's interpretation of Spider-Man, I actually view it more as satire. Because here's the thing. Ultimate is really, really funny.
Villains seem to believe Spider-Man goes to your school. Do you know anything about that?
I think he sits next to me in Spanish. Hola, ¿dónde está la biblioteca?
Now, while I like Ultimate Spidey because he's funny, and hint, I like Drake Bell for reasons I'll explain later, but these MCU pieces of garbage, Nick Fury specifically, if Spider-Man's not in this show, I would literally think this show is set in the MCU because all of them look like they're ripped straight out of the MCU. I would think this is set in the MCU as a secret sequel to Avengers. Because look at this. This is literally the MCU. Nick Fury. I can't get over the trench coat, dude. I don't like the trench coat. Give him the one he has in the comics. It's way better. Spectacular was replaced by blatant MCU propaganda. I do need to watch Spectacular, but since I haven't seen it, I'm not going to go super in-depth on why Spectacular is infinitely better than Ultimate. I'm sure you can find thousands of YouTube videos that explain why. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I've seen it, because I haven't. But we are going to add them to our little list here. One being the infinitely worse sequel, and one being the infinitely better original that was not touched by the MCU. And Ultimate has its fun moments, and I really don't think it's that bad. But now it's time to get to the big one. There's a show that aired right after the first Avengers movie that replaced the single greatest animated adaptation of a comic book ever, barring maybe Invincible. One show that is the gold standard for animated adaptations that are also made for kids, and even just not for kids. This show is the best. It's better than Justice League Unlimited. It's better than Batman the Animated Series. It's better than Superman the Animated Series. It's better than all those titans of animated adaptations. It was canceled way before its time. I don't know why I'm avoiding it. You all know what it is. Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes is the greatest animated adaptation of a superhero comic book ever. And Avengers Assemble sucks my balls. So Avengers 2012 is a very cool movie. It pioneered the connected Marvel universe as well as the connected universe in general. The first time a big blockbuster superhero movie was able to cross over with other big blockbuster superhero movies, and it did something that had never been done before. It created a team-up movie that other studios desperately tried to copy for the next decade and are still trying to copy to this day. It's fun. Thor, Iron Man, and Cap are very accurate adaptations, at least in this one. Thor falls off in the accuracy department later on, even though his movies get better. Iron Man and Captain America are great all the time. There's a reason they're as popular as they are now. But I hate Avengers Assemble so much. I don't think it's a terrible show. If I'd never read a comic book, I probably wouldn't even care. Hell, if I haven't seen Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, I probably would still like it just fine. If I hadn't seen what these shows are capable of, I wouldn't have cared about this blatant reimagining of the MCU Avengers. It's so close to the Avengers that it almost seems like a sequel to it. Now, Marvel knew they were heading towards the Avengers after Iron Man's post-credits scene. So in 2008, they dropped Avengers EMH. Remember what I said earlier about Iron Man's goatee? You can tell if an adaptation came out post-MCU or pre-MCU based on if Iron Man has a goatee or not. Check out the old animated series, which also has a banger intro. The two characters that pop up in the show that are in Iron Man are direct adaptations of their MCU counterparts, not their comic book counterparts, which again is fine. Iron Man is pretty much ripped straight off the page, again, except for his mustache, and his armor I like better in the comics. It looks a little bit more superhero-y than military-ish, but that's not a big deal. And the comics have grown to look more like the MCU counterpart, which is what I mentioned earlier. And Nick Fury having the trench coat in the MCU is not nearly as cool as him having this badass suit that he has in Avengers EMH. In Avengers EMH, he has the aura of a super spy while also acting like one. In the MCU, he kind of just orders people around and stands around. I like his shield uniform. It's really good. And I don't mind the trench coat in Season 2 because he's on the run in Season 2 of EMH, so that kind of look is fine. I understand why they MCUify suits, because in some of these would look really goofy in live action. Hell, we see that in WandaVision. In animation, it looks so much better. Imagine if in Invincible, Mark's suit looked like this. It would look terrible. Hawkeye's suit in EMH is so good, and NetEase, if you're watching this, I like the modern Hawkeye suit, and I like the Ronin suit that you guys have for him, but give my man the purple suit with the ears. It looks so good, and with the Rivals art style, it looks, I can't. I don't even play Hawkeye, and I'd buy that. I like the MCU Ant-Man suit, at least in the first movie. I don't like it later on after the first movie, but in this show, the Ant-Man suit is perfect, ripped straight off the page. I like how he swaps from the mask to the helmet, whether he's big or small, just like in the comics. But it's not just how they look. Every single person in the show looks so good. Even the Hydra goons look so much better. But it's not just the looks. Now it's time for the Avengers EMH meat writing session, where I'm going to rant about how good EMH is and convince you guys to go watch it. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a DC guy. For the most part, I would prefer DC Comics since I like the way their characters are characterized. I like the Gods Among Us angle versus the strong human angle that Marvel is known for. Marvel's characters are down-to-earth relatable, while DC characters are ones we look up to. But something that Marvel does better than DC is the world building. I like DC's villains for the most part more than Marvel, but the factions of Marvel are so much better than DC. Most of DC villains, like the Crime Syndicate, Legion of Doom, and others like that, are essentially the same. Take over the world, kill the good guys, etc. While I like Lex Luthor, I think he's a lot more interesting than the Red Skull. Hydra and AIM are completely different. One of them strives to avenge the Third Reich from World War II, the other one strives for intellectual dominance. Avengers EMH does this perfectly. In fact, you see them actually fight each other in the streets, and the Avengers have to break up the fight because they're tearing up the city fighting each other. Same thing with the Kree and the Skrull War. It's not just the bad guys. Earth's Mightiest Heroes is about the Avengers for sure, but the Fantastic Four and mutants play a big role in this conflict. S.H.I.E.L.D. has their own contracted superheroes, Hill has their own agenda to Fury, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is a completely different entity when it's being run by two different directors. S.H.I.E.L.D. in the MCU is essentially the same, regardless on who's running it, and they kind of stay away from the Avengers, but throughout Avengers EMH, they constantly want the Avengers to work for S.H.I.E.L.D. The Fantastic Four help with galactic threats when it's needed, but for the most part, they're characterized more as explorers than superheroes. X-Men aren't in the show, besides Wolverine, because of rights issues, but in released story details about Season 3, they were going to introduce them along with Doctor Strange. Mutants and magic was the theme. Some of the Avengers don't even show up at some episodes. Sometimes Panther is in Wakanda, sometimes Thor's in Asgard. Now, the world building is an amazing aspect. But the greatest aspect of the show is the characters and how they interact, starting with someone who has been done dirty in the MCU for years.
In my day, we had a name for someone like you.
Yeah? What's that?
Hero. I've been watching you, Hulk. No matter how scared people are of you, no matter how much you're hounded, you always do the right thing.
Hulk is one of Marvel's most popular characters and has been for years. Hulk, Spider-Man, and Wolverine are the sole reason that Marvel didn't go bankrupt in the early 2000s before Iron Man. People like him in the first Avengers because of this scene.
I'm always angry.
But Hulk is far more interesting when he has a personality and at least decent intelligence. The MCU did him dirty. Hulk being able to talk is far more interesting than the Rage Monster most of the time. I like it when Hulk goes nuts, but I think he should be stronger the madder he gets, just like in the comics, but his intelligence should go down. Being unable to talk. Hulk's best adaptation in the MCU is unironically Thor Ragnarok. Hulk should be a thinking creature who should be able to talk, and EMH, Hulk talks and has conversations with the other Avengers. And his relationship with Hawkeye, it's cute, and it's funny that the strongest Avenger and the weakest Avenger, quote unquote, have a little dynamic.
You ready, J. Jaws?
I'm always ready.
They have their own arc together, and they need to save the rest of the Avengers from being Gamma monsters. Hulk in the MCU only has intelligence when he's in Banner form, except for Thor Ragnarok, which I think did Hulk really, really well. And then after Infinity War, Hulk just doesn't show up again, and they have Professor Hulk. I really thought when I was watching Endgame that Hulk was going to have one last hurrah where he comes out super angry and beats the hell out of Thanos. But no, instead we got Professor Hulk, who eats tacos and eggs and dabs.
Damn!
Bruce.
Listen to your mom.
Thor in the MCU, they tried to make Thor the way he is in the comics early MCU, a wise god warrior from another world who doesn't know how He-Earth customs work, and so he's naive, but he's also wise in the fact of how people work. They eventually abandoned this by Age of Ultron because funny Thor is more fun for audiences, and I actually really like Thor's adaptation in the MCU post Age of Ultron, but the one in Avengers EMH manages to be charismatic and has some of the hypest moments in the show, on par with the Avengers Infinity War scenes.
Because I can hear it.
Hear what?
Thunder.
Hear me, Collectors. I am Thor the Thunderer, son of Odin, prince of Asgard. But today, above all things, I am an Avenger, and this world is under my protection.
I wish they would have used it more in the MCU. Other thing I really like about this is the helmet. They only seem to use the helmet when they want to make a joke or make fun of it.
That's my look.
The helmet is so cool, and it's iconic to Thor's suit. Hawkeye's my third favorite character on the show. In the MCU, he's kind of just another Black Widow. He's a spy, has a bow, makes jokes sometimes. However, I do kind of like in the MCU how he's the regular dude who has a family, and he's a nice guy, and is nice to everyone. That's not how he is in the comics, though. In EMH, just like in the comics, he's a hot-headed hero who is genuinely one of the funniest characters on the show.
I'll take Widow. You take the other 140.
He's the weakest on the team, since Black Widow isn't really an Avenger in the show, and he seems to overcompensate it by being a jackass. Again, Netties, please give him the purple suit with the ears in the show. I hate the super spy goggle suit. It's basic and generic. It looks fine in the MCU. I don't even mind it in Rivals. Black Panther. I love Black Panther in the show. I don't like the MCU nanotech suit. I hate nanotech in comic movies. It's awful. The CW started doing it with The Flash and Arrow and all that kind of stuff. The MCU's been doing it since Infinity War, and I hate it so much. It's so much cooler when characters suit up. Spider-Man should not have nanotech. I don't mind the Iron Spider suit. I know Spider-Man fans really don't like it because it overstates its welcome, which I'd probably agree with you. Anyway, nanotech, boo, thumbs down. I like how his suit's a suit. I like how he uses vibranium spears and knives like in the comics. He does more than just punch people. This is a pet peeve, but in the final season of Avengers Assemble, the Black Panther movie had just come out, and since it was nominated for Best Picture, the final season of Avengers Assemble is the MCU Black Panther show. Guys, I understand Black Panther is cool, but don't make the final season of your already mid-ass show a Black Panther animated series. Like Shuri should not be the central character and have more screen time than the Avengers. This is terrible, and again, they look exactly like the MCU. Look how much better this Black Panther suit is compared to the MCU. Every single character in this show looks so much better. I hate MCU suits. I'm not going to talk about them anymore. I keep getting distracted. Anyway, the last thing about Black Panther I like is his intelligence. Black Panther in the show is clearly one of the smartest people in the room. He always is overshadowed in his intelligence in Assemble and in the MCU. He's kind of just the guy who fights with karate and the cat guy. But in the comics and in EMH, he's way smarter than people give him credit for, and he's actually one of the best tacticians. And now it's time for the top two. Captain America in this show is the best he's ever been adapted, ever. I love Chris Evans, and he really embodies him. Hell, I don't even mind the Walmart MCU one in the Assemble series. But Cap in this show is genuine perfection. My only complaint about him is I wish he was in more of the show, because in the second season, spoilers, he's replaced by a Skrull the whole time. But that makes up for his best episode being in the second season on the ship.
There is something you'd like to tell us.
There is. Name, Stephen Rogers. Rank, Captain. Serial number, 5498580. And that's all you're ever going to get from me.
Cap in this show is so unfalteringly good that he is the moral compass of the entire team. My favorite thing about him, he never asks to lead. He, throughout the entire show, follows Iron Man. Even though he knows Iron Man isn't a very good leader, he knows that Iron Man is hot-headed and narcissistic, but he sees the good in Tony and he will never ask to take away his leadership, and it isn't until season 2 that Iron Man asks him to lead.
You're the leader of this team, Tony.
And I'm smart enough to know that the stakes are too high this time. Good as I am, you're the right man for the job, Steve.
It's so good, and small things like this make the show better.
Jarvis, put out the call. Code.
And finally, Cap is voiced by Brian Bloom, who is the definitive actor for Captain America for me. I love me some Chris Evans. Chris Evans is great in the role, but his voice commands power, respect, and it is the Captain America voice. His voice is so good that this is the voice that I hear when I read a comic book. So you can imagine my surprise when I opened Marvel Rivals and played Captain America for the first time, and I heard this.
Real soldiers do the right thing, not the easy thing.
Raccoon joke like everyone else?
I don't. You do have, and I quote, one hell of a tactical brain in that tiny skull. You know I wouldn't have left you behind if...
It was a long time ago. We're both here now.
Brian Bloom voicing Captain America in Marvel Rivals it's the best decision they've ever made about the game. Fight me. I don't care about the gameplay. Any of that. Captain America being voiced by Brian Bloom makes my heart feel full. And this is the definitive adaptation of who Captain America is.
Is he insane? What is he doing?
He's being Captain America.
Other really good episode is the episode of Spider-Man, where most of the city hates him for being an evil Skrull. But he doesn't even care. They ridicule him and tell him that he hates them. And they tell Captain America that they hate him. And throughout the show, Spider-Man asks him. When I mentioned earlier that I like Drake Bell, a bunch of you probably like, why do you like Drake Bell so much? The one in Spectacular is way better. The reason for that is because this episode and all of Avengers EMH has him voicing Spider-Man. Drake Bell voices Spider-Man in Avengers EMH, and so that's the one that I grew up on. And so this is the one that is the definitive Spider-Man actor for me, and that's why I like the one in Ultimate more. Sorry guys, that's just how it is. I don't make the rules. But throughout the episode, he teaches Spider-Man that it doesn't matter what they think about you because you're here to help them. That is the perfect Captain America character, and the fact that he teaches everyone to be a better person is so good.
You're no hero. You're a traitor. Hey, he's trying to help you. We both are. And that wasn't Cap. It was an alien.
Spider-Man, it's okay.
No, but...
Let it go.
Now, it's time to get to the best character in the show, who's so good that he is still my favorite Avenger to this day, even though he only has one good solo movie, sorry. And that, my friends, is Hank Pym. Ant-Man is the best adaptation of the character ever, one of the best adaptations of any character ever. He is ripped straight off the page, and when they announced that he would be getting his own movie, but it would be Scott Lang and not Hank Pym, I was not happy. Because the characterization of Hank Pym in this show is perfect and completely faithful to the comics. People who hear that Hank Pym is the one who made Ultron in the comics are always so confused. They go, what? That doesn't make any sense for his character. But it does, just not the one in the MCU. In the show, we see that Hank is a pacifist, and he hates violence and would much rather rehabilitate criminals than fight them. That's
help rehabilitate supervillains. I joined the Avengers to help people, including the villains.
And his hatred for violence and wanting to rehabilitate led him to create Ultron. And that's why he looks like an ant. Ultron looks like an ant because he was designed by Hank Pym. Ultron goes crazy because Hank based the personality of Ultron off of his own brain.
It's me. I used my own brainwaves as a template, a starting point to create Ultron. My mind made it go bad.
And when Hank realizes he falls into a deep depression, he realizes that his own brain is the one that created Ultron, and he is the reason that Ultron is evil, which makes him evil. Wanting to help people, but knowing that a murderous robot was based off his own brain means that he is Ultron. Hank's already unstable personality goes crazy. He adopts the title of Yellow Jacket, and he begins, quote-unquote, murdering criminals, believing that he killed Hank Pym, and it's only that his love for Janet brings him back when the risk of him being injured snaps him out of it, but not without consequences. He's still Hank Pym, but now he's much more erratic and crazy, and he remains this way for the rest of the show. This is one of the only times that a kid's show has a complete character arc for a character that makes them completely change throughout the rest of the show. My only thing I wish for this character is that we got another season for him to go back to Hank Pym. I would have loved his character to go full circle, and his relationship with Jan is the greatest romance I've ever seen in a kid's cartoon ever. It's subtle, and the way that they bounce off each other, and they almost never say they love each other aside from like 3 times. They date throughout the whole show, but you almost can't even tell. And Hank's distancy is so good. And it's funny that Hank's distancy with Janet is actually a perfect mirror of Sue and Reed's relationship. And they even talk about that in the Fantastic Four Avengers crossover.
What? Mr. Fantastic is in his lab ignoring you? Shocker. Why are you still hanging around with that guy? And you could be with me.
Sorry for the long tangent. This is a really good show, and if you have not seen it, you need to. Every character is utilized so well, and it tells a story that all ages can enjoy. I'm an adult now, and I still frequently watch this as a comfort show. And the reason that I talked about it so long is to hopefully spread the good word and complete our little graph here. Since the multiverse inception of the first Loki season, which we mentioned earlier, we've been getting more and more stories that separate from the MCU. As mentioned before, we had the banger X-Men 92 show, which was recently revived into the amazing X-Men 97, which is really good. On the Spider side, we have the recent Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which I unfortunately have not seen because I didn't love the animation style, and it was only until that I heard it was really good that I've considered watching it. I do need to watch it, but everyone that I've said is really good, so it's gonna fall into our little graph here. However, I did see this clip, and it's everything I've wanted from Doctor Strange, and now brace for impact for Doctor Strange rant. Doctor Strange should never not have gloves on. Doctor Strange's hands, yes, were re-given function after he learned the mystic arts, but he should have really bad scarring on his hands, and he should be embarrassed of it. Doctor Strange, his hands, is so underutilized in the MCU. He only has gloves in one scene, which is in Thor Ragnarok's cameo. I love it when he has gloves, and I hate it when he doesn't have them. My favorite comic book from Doctor Strange is The Oath. It's super short. It's like 7 issues or something, but at the end of it, he is fighting the bad guy, and they both lose access to their magic, and so they have to do a fist fight at the very end. In the fist fight, he takes off his gloves, and you see the scarring on his hands. Without magic, his hands are still useless and scarred, and it makes him feel unworthy and unwanted. This comic is really good, and it made me hate it when Doctor Strange doesn't have gloves. Anyway, Doctor Strange hand rant over. Now, I would give an arm and a leg for a revival of Avengers EMH. It's so good, and I understand that you want a consistent art style, Disney. I understand that you want the MCU to be your titan that it is, and I understand that you want all things to look like the MCU as advertisement. But comics are known for having differing art styles based on the writer. Like, you don't have one writer write all comic books. You have them different. They all look different. And I know you have the rights to EMH's characters. You have the full rights to them. There is zero reason to not use them. Don't give me an MCU animated series. If I wanted to watch the MCU, I would go watch the MCU. Give me a great adaptation of stories that I and many others love. Arcs from the comics that are ripped straight out of the page. Secret Invasion is nearly perfect. Like, the only difference is Spider-Woman is the queen in the comics and not Mockingbird, and obviously Captain America was dead at this point, but... Oh, and also, I know Ultron drops in Rivals in like 2 weeks or something, but in honor of that, the Ultron in this show makes the Ultron in the MCU look like an absolute joke. And that's coming from someone who actually likes the Ultron in the MCU. I know a lot of people didn't like how quippy he was, but I think it works for Joss Whedon's style. I know that people don't like it, and I probably agree with you on Joss Whedon's style is a little bit too comedic. But this kind of Ultron wouldn't work in that movie because you have no nonsense robots that are bouncing off of the Avengers. So it just wouldn't work. But I really love the Avengers vs. Ultron arc in this. He actually has 2 arcs. The first one's better than the second arc, but they're both really good. And you get Vision introduced. Ultron in this show is menacing, and you get to see his dynamic with Hank Pym, which I think we never got in the MCU. And I actually was so hyped for Kang the Conqueror because I knew about this show before Kang was announced. Same thing with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I was one of those few people that was hyped for Guardians of the Galaxy because the Guardians have their own appearance in Avengers EMH way before the Guardians movie. And side funny thing that Star-Lord is voiced by Master Chief, so that's kind of cool, I guess.
My name is Peter Quill. I'm the leader of the Guardians.
He's the Star-Lord. Respect him.
Anyway, Disney, please, please, please. Give me a revival of this show. I don't care what form it's in. I don't care. I know that you've been hinting towards having animated Avengers shows that are comic accurate because you showed them in X-Men 97. But anyway, I'm losing my breath. I've talked way too long. Go watch the show. I avoided spoiling a lot of it. If you watch the whole video and you still haven't seen it, go watch it. There's still so many more things you need to watch in this show. It's really good. Anyway, that's enough for me. Bye.